Now let's begin. The coffee had gone cold in Marcus Turner's hand. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the mug like it held answers he desperately needed. Upstairs, he could hear his wife Rachel getting their 5-year-old son ready for the day. The usual morning chaos of finding socks and convincing a kindergartner that yes, he really did need to brush his teeth. Marcus was 32, a civil litigation attorney at a mid-sized firm downtown. He'd built his career on reading people, on catching the small inconsistencies in testimony that unraveled entire cases. But lately, he'd been missing something crucial, something happening right under his nose in his own home. It had started 3 weeks ago. Little Spencer, named after Rachel's grandfather, had begun clinging to Marcus every morning. The boy who used to bounce out of bed excited for school now trembled when Marcus picked up his briefcase. Yesterday morning had been the worst. Spencer had wrapped his small arms around Marcus's leg, tears streaming down his face, voice breaking as he begged, "Daddy, please don't go. They come when you're not here. They do terrifying things to me." Marcus had knelt down, heart hammering, and asked who they were. But Spencer had just shaken his head, going silent in that way traumatized children do, like speaking the words might make the monsters real. Rachel had dismissed it as nightmares, as an overactive imagination. "He's 5, Marcus. Remember when he thought there were dinosaurs in the closet?" She'd been distracted lately, taking on extra shifts at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. Her mother, Vivian Lehman, had been sick, and Rachel spent most of her free time at her parents' house across town. But Marcus knew nightmares. This wasn't nightmares. This was fear. He'd tried everything. Checked the house for carbon monoxide. Reviewed their nanny cam footage, but they'd removed those cameras 6 months ago when Spencer started school full-time. He'd questioned their neighbors, casually asking if they'd seen anyone around the house. Nothing. Last night, unable to sleep, Marcus had done what he did best. He'd built a case file. He'd written down every incident, every time Spencer had shown signs of distress. The timeline was damning. It had all started exactly when Rachel's father, Abraham Lehman, had offered to help out more. Abraham was 73, a retired postal worker who'd always been off. Marcus had noticed it from the first time they met, 8 years ago when he and Rachel started dating. The way Abraham's eyes would linger too long. The way he'd make comments that seemed innocent on the surface, but left Marcus uncomfortable. "Rachel was such a beautiful little girl," he'd said once, showing Marcus family photos. "I used to give her baths until she was 10. Isn't that what good fathers do?" Marcus had mentioned it to Rachel once, early in their marriage. She'd gotten defensive, angry even. "That's my father you're talking about. He's old-fashioned, that's all. You're being paranoid." So Marcus had buried his concerns, told himself he was overreacting. Abraham had been at their wedding, in the delivery room when Spencer was born, a fixture at every birthday and holiday. Rachel trusted him completely. But 3 weeks ago, when Vivian fell and broke her hip, Abraham had suddenly had a lot of free time. And Rachel, drowning in guilt and responsibility, had given her father a key to their house. "Just in case of emergencies," she'd said. "He can check on Spencer if we're both running late, or if there's an issue with the house." Marcus had objected, but weakly. What kind of son-in-law denies his injured mother-in-law's husband a key to help out? Rachel had already been stressed, and Marcus hadn't wanted to fight. Now, sitting at the kitchen table, Marcus made a decision. He pulled out his phone and texted his senior partner, "Family emergency. Need to take sick leave. We'll explain later." Then he texted Rachel, "Not feeling well. Staying home today. Don't worry about us." When Rachel came downstairs with Spencer, Marcus was still in his pajamas, doing a convincing impression of someone with a stomach bug. Rachel kissed his forehead, told him to rest, and headed out for her 12-hour shift. Spencer watched his father with wide, uncertain eyes. "You're staying?" the boy whispered. "I'm staying," Marcus confirmed. "Why don't you play in your room for a bit? Daddy needs to make some phone calls." After Spencer went upstairs, Marcus moved quickly. He set up his laptop in the guest room, the one with a clear view of the hallway and Spencer's bedroom door. He positioned it so the camera would capture anyone approaching. Then he installed a small audio recorder, the kind he used for client meetings, in the hallway smoke detector. By 9:30, everything was ready. Marcus sat in the guest room, doors slightly ajar, laptop recording, and waited. The house was silent except for the sound of Spencer playing with his toy cars upstairs. Marcus thought about his son, the way Spencer laughed at bad jokes, The way he insisted on wearing his Superman cape to the grocery store. The way he'd recently started asking Marcus to check under his bed every night. Not for monsters, but for the bad people. At 9:47 a.m., Marcus heard it. A key sliding into the front door lock. His blood went cold. Rachel wouldn't be home for hours. They hadn't ordered any deliveries. The only other person with a key was. The front door opened. Marcus heard footsteps, deliberate and quiet, moving through the foyer. He watched through the crack in the guest room door as Abraham Lehman appeared at the bottom of the stairs. The old man was carrying a bag. Not a grocery bag or a toolbox. A black duffel bag, the kind that zipped all the way around. Abraham paused, listening. Then he started up the stairs, moving with a purpose that made Marcus's stomach turn. The old man walked straight to Spencer's room, didn't knock, just pushed the door open. Marcus heard his son's voice, small and terrified. No, please. Daddy's here. Daddy's home. Daddy's at work. Spencer. Abraham's voice drifted out, calm and practiced. Just like always. Now, let's not make this difficult. Marcus stood from the guest room, his hands steady despite the rage burning through his veins. He'd prosecuted enough cases to know the importance of evidence, of catching someone in the act, of not moving too soon. But he'd also been a father long enough to know when theory met reality. He stepped out of the guest room and walked to the hallway, standing at the top of the stairs where Abraham would see him when he turned around. Abraham, Marcus said, his voice level. What are you doing in my house? The old man froze in Spencer's doorway. He turned slowly, and Marcus saw it, the flash of panic, the quick calculation, the shift from predator to prey. Abraham's hand was still on the duffel bag. Marcus, I thought. Rachel said you'd be at work. I'm sure she did. Marcus took a step forward. Step away from my son's room. Abraham's face went through several expressions. Surprise, fear, then something uglier. Defiance. This is a misunderstanding. I came to check on the boy. Rachel asked me to. She didn't. Marcus pulled out his phone, held it up. I've been recording since you walked in. Every word. Every step. The color drained from Abraham's face. Spencer, Marcus called, not taking his eyes off Abraham. Come here, son. The boy appeared in the doorway, and Marcus saw it all. The fear, the shame, the relief that someone finally believed him. Spencer ran past Abraham and wrapped himself around Marcus's legs, just like he did every morning. Daddy, Spencer sobbed. He brings the camera. He makes me. Shoo. Marcus said gently, running his hand through his son's hair. I know. It's okay. You're safe now. Go to your room and lock the door. Don't come out until I say. Spencer ran, and Marcus heard the click of the lock. Abraham had regained some composure. You're making a mistake, Marcus. Whatever that boy told you, he's confused. Children have such vivid imaginations. If you make accusations. I'm not making accusations, Marcus interrupted. I'm stating facts. You used a key you weren't authorized to have. You entered my home without permission. You went to my son's room with. He nodded at the bag. What's in the bag, Abraham? Nothing. Toys. I brought him toys. Then you won't mind if I look. Abraham's hand tightened on the bag. I think I should leave. I think you should stay right where you are. Marcus pulled out his phone again and dialed 911. Abraham lunged for the stairs, but Marcus was 32 and Abraham was 73. Marcus didn't even have to touch him, just stepped into his path, and the old man stumbled backward. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Marcus Turner. I have an intruder in my home who is attempting to access my minor child's bedroom. I'm detaining him until police arrive. Abraham's face went from red to purple. Intruder? I'm your wife's father. With a key you're about to lose, Marcus said calmly. He gave the dispatcher his address, then hung up. The next 10 minutes were the longest of Marcus's life. Abraham tried everything. Threats, bargaining, playing the victim. Rachel will never forgive you for this. I'm an old man with a sick wife. You're destroying your family over nothing. But Marcus had spent years in courtrooms. He knew how abusers operated, how they manipulated and minimized. He stood there, blocking the stairs, and said nothing. When the police arrived, Marcus handed over his phone with the audio recording. He explained calmly, professionally, exactly what he'd witnessed. 2 officers took Abraham outside while a third, a woman named Officer Dolores Kramer, spoke with Spencer. Marcus watched through Spencer's door as his son, in halting words, told Officer Kramer about the picture times and the touching games and the special secrets. By the time Rachel arrived home 2 hours later, called back by the police, Abraham was already at the station being processed. The duffel bag had been opened. Inside, a professional camera, props, and things Marcus couldn't even look at without feeling sick. Rachel stood in their living room, her face ashen, as Officer Kramer explained what they'd found, what Spencer had disclosed. "No," Rachel kept saying. "No, that's not possible. Not my father. There's been a mistake." Marcus watched his wife's world shatter. He felt no satisfaction in being right, only a deep, bone-tired grief for what they'd all lost. But when Rachel turned to him, her eyes full of accusation, "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you do this without talking to me first?" Marcus felt something harden inside him. "I tried to tell you," he said quietly. 8 years ago. Last month. This morning. You didn't want to hear it." Rachel flinched like he'd slapped her. Officer Kramer cleared her throat. "Mrs. Turner, I need you to understand something. Your husband likely saved your son's life today. The materials we found, the testimony Spencer gave us, this wasn't a first offense. Your father is part of a larger network we've been investigating." The room went silent. "What network?" Marcus asked. Officer Kramer looked at him, and Marcus saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that came from seeing too much darkness. "We've been tracking an online group for 6 months. They share content involving children. We couldn't identify most of the victims or perpetrators. The footage was always cropped, disguised. But one of our techs recognized a wallpaper pattern. It matched a house we'd investigated 3 years ago, a house owned by your wife's uncle, Stanley Lehman." Rachel made a sound like a wounded animal. "Stanley," Marcus said. "Rachel's uncle Stanley? The one who lives in Oregon. Used to live in Oregon. He moved to a town about 40 minutes from here 2 years ago." Officer Kramer pulled out a folder. "We have reason to believe Abraham and Stanley have been collaborating with others. This is much bigger than one man and one child." Marcus felt the world tilt. "How many? We're still investigating. But based on what we've uncovered so far, at least 7 children over the past decade." Rachel sat down hard on the couch, her face gray. "My father. My uncle. All this time." Officer Kramer's expression softened. "Mrs. Turner, this is not your fault. These men are skilled manipulators. They count on family loyalty, on people not wanting to believe the worst. But your husband did believe. And he acted. That's what matters now." After the police left, Marcus and Rachel sat in silence. Upstairs, Spencer was asleep, exhausted from the day's trauma. A counselor was coming tomorrow. There would be interviews, forensic exams, years of therapy. "I need you to leave," Rachel said finally. Marcus looked at his wife. "What?" "I need time to process this. I can't look at you right now." "Rachel, I protected our son. You suspected my father of being a pedophile, and you didn't tell me." Her voice broke. "You let me send Spencer alone with him. You let me trust him. I didn't know for certain until today. And every time I raised concerns, you shut me down. Because you never said what you actually thought. You just made vague comments about him being off. If you told me, you wouldn't have believed me. You just said that. You still don't want to believe it." Rachel stood up, trembling. "Get out. I mean it. Go stay somewhere else. I need to breathe." Marcus could have fought, could have argued that this was his house too, that he'd done nothing wrong. But he saw the grief and shock and rage in his wife's eyes, and he understood that she needed to blame someone, and it couldn't be her father, not yet, so it would have to be him. He went upstairs, packed a bag, and kissed Spencer's sleeping forehead. "I'll be back soon," he whispered. "I promise." As he drove to a hotel downtown, Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You made a mistake today." Then another. "You should have minded your own business." Marcus pulled over, hands shaking. He called Officer Kramer. "They know," he said when she answered. "Someone knows what happened today, and they're threatening me." There was a pause on the other end. "Mr. Turner, I need you to listen carefully. The network we're investigating, they're organized. They protect each other. If they think you're a threat to their operation, what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to be careful. Very careful. This isn't over." Marcus sat in his car in a hotel parking lot, his phone full of threats, his son traumatized, his wife unable to look at him, and he realized that catching Abraham had been just the beginning. The hotel room smelled like bleach and old carpet. Marcus hadn't slept. He'd spent the night reviewing every detail of his interaction with Abraham, every second of the recording, every implication of what Officer Kramer had said. A network. At least 7 children. They protect each other. At 6 a.m., his phone rang. "Rachel, you need to come back," she said without preamble. "Spencer won't stop crying. He thinks you left because of him." Marcus was in his car within minutes. When he walked through the front door, Spencer launched himself into Marcus's arms with such force they both nearly fell. "You came back," Spencer sobbed. "You came back." "I will always come back," Marcus promised, meeting Rachel's eyes over their son's head. "Always." Rachel looked like she'd aged a decade overnight. "We need to talk. After Spencer goes to school." "He's going to school?" The counselor said routine is important. "And we got a child advocate. Her name is Teresa Gregory. She's coming at 9 to talk to all of us." The morning was a blur of preparation. Spencer clung to Marcus like a barnacle, wouldn't even let him go to the bathroom alone. When they finally got the boy on the school bus, with a teacher who'd been briefed by the principal, Marcus and Rachel stood on the lawn and watched it drive away. "I'm sorry," Rachel said quietly. "For last night. For everything. You were in shock. I was a coward." She turned to him, eyes red-rimmed. "My mother called this morning. From the hospital. They told her about my father's arrest. She's denying everything. Says you set him up, that you've always hated him, that you probably planted evidence." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "Do you believe that?" "No. But Marcus, I need you to understand. My whole family is going to come at us. My mother, my aunts, my cousins. They're already circling the wagons. They're going to try to destroy you. Us. Let them try. You don't know them. The Lehmans, we protect our own. Even when we shouldn't." At 9 o'clock, Teresa Gregory arrived. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put Marcus at ease. She explained the process, the forensic interview Spencer would need to do, the medical exam, the likelihood of a trial. "I need you both to be prepared," Teresa said. "This is going to get worse before it gets better. Abraham's attorney will try to discredit Spencer, to make him seem confused or coached. They'll paint Marcus as a vindictive son-in-law with a grudge. And if there really is a network involved, they'll have resources we can't even imagine." "What kind of resources?" Marcus asked. Teresa exchanged a look with Rachel. "Money. Political connections. People in positions of power who have a vested interest in keeping this quiet." Marcus felt something click into place. "The threats I got last night. They weren't random." "No," Teresa agreed. "They weren't. Which is why I'm going to suggest something that might sound extreme. I think you should hire private security. And I think you should start documenting everything. Every interaction with the Lehman family, every threat, every attempt at contact." Over the next week, Marcus did exactly that. He hired Luther Bass, a former FBI agent who now ran a small private investigation firm. Luther installed cameras around their house, gave them new phones with encrypted messaging, and ran background checks on every member of the Lehman family. What he found was disturbing. Stanley Lehman, the uncle in Oregon, or rather, 40 minutes away, had been fired from 3 different schools over a 30-year career. Always for inappropriate behavior with students. Never charged. Always settled quietly with NDAs and severance packages. Abraham's brother, Jonathan Lehman, had been a youth pastor at a megachurch in the 90s. The church had shut down suddenly in 2002, and Jonathan had moved to Florida. When Luther dug deeper, he found sealed court records and at least 4 families who'd signed settlements. Even Rachel's mother, Vivian, had a history. She'd been a school nurse, and there were complaints from parents, children coming home with strange marks, stories that didn't add up. Nothing proven, but enough smoke to suggest fire. "It's generational," Luther told Marcus and Rachel as they sat in their living room, reviewing his findings. "This kind of organized abuse, it gets passed down. Parents groom their children to accept it as normal, and those children grow up to either become abusers themselves or enablers." Rachel had gone pale. "Are you saying my whole family?" "I'm saying there's a pattern, and patterns don't lie." That night, after Rachel went to bed, Marcus sat in his study and made a list, not just of potential suspects, but of victims. If there had been 7 children over 10 years and multiple abusers, then the math was simple. There had to be more. He started with Spencer's school. How many other children had Abraham had access to? Rachel's mother had taught him about volunteer opportunities, Abraham had been a regular helper at the school library, had run a photography club for kids interested in nature photography. Marcus felt sick. He pulled up the school directory and started making notes. Then he expanded his search. Abraham's church, his bowling league, the community center where he played chess. Everywhere Marcus looked, Abraham had positioned himself around children. By 2 a.m., Marcus had a map on his wall with photographs, timelines, and connections. He'd identified at least 15 children who'd had regular contact with Abraham over the past 5 years. He was so focused he didn't hear Rachel come in until she spoke. "What is this?" Marcus turned. His wife stood in the doorway, staring at the wall of evidence. "I'm building a case," Marcus said simply. "The police are building a case. The police are overwhelmed. Officer Kramer told me they have 2 detectives on this, and they're handling 30 other cases. This needs someone who cares, Rachel. Someone who won't let it get swept under the rug." Rachel walked closer, studying the photographs. These are children from Spencer's school, and Abraham's church, and the community center. Rachel, he had access to dozens of kids. And if Stanley and Jonathan were involved, if there really is a network. "You can't do this alone." "I'm not alone. I have Luther. Luther is a PI. You need—" She stopped, thinking. "You need someone who understands how these networks operate. Someone who's investigated them before." Marcus waited. Rachel pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "Albert, it's Rachel. I need to call in a favor." 20 minutes later, Rachel explained. Albert Reed was an investigative journalist who'd exposed a child trafficking ring in the Midwest 5 years ago. He was Rachel's cousin, the only member of the Lehman family who'd cut ties with them after some incident Rachel had never gotten details about. "If anyone can help us navigate this, it's Albert," Rachel said. "He knows how they think, how they operate." The next morning, Albert Reed sat in their living room. He was 45, lean and intense, with the kind of eyes that missed nothing. "Let me be clear," Albert said. "If we do this, if we really go after these people, your life as you know it is over. They will ruin you. Financially, socially, professionally. They will make you wish you'd kept your mouth shut." "They already threatened me," Marcus said. "Those were warnings. Wait until they actually start." Albert pulled out a laptop. "But if you're committed, I can help. I've been trying to expose the Lehman family for years. I just never had enough evidence." "What stopped you?" Albert's jaw tightened. "My daughter, Emily. She spent a summer with Uncle Abraham when she was 9. I didn't know. I was overseas on assignment, and my ex-wife thought it would be good for Emily to connect with family. When I came back, Emily was different. Wouldn't talk about the summer. Started having nightmares." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Did you?" "I tried. Went to the police. But Emily wouldn't talk. Vivian and Abraham denied everything. Called me a paranoid father trying to alienate my daughter. My ex-wife believed them. I lost custody in the divorce. Where's Emily now?" "Dead." Albert's voice was flat. "Suicide. 2 years ago. She was 23. The room went silent. She left a note," Albert continued. "Told me I was right. Told me what Abraham did. What Stanley did. What others did. She gave me names, dates, details. But it was too late for any of it to matter legally. Statute of limitations had run out on everything." Rachel was crying quietly. "So yes," Albert said, looking at Marcus. "I'll help you. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because I want every single one of these bastards to pay for what they took from my daughter." Over the next month, the 3 of them worked in secret. Albert used his journalist contacts to access sealed records. Luther used his FBI connections to track digital footprints. And Marcus, using his legal training, started building an airtight case that would stand up in court. What they uncovered was worse than any of them had imagined. The network wasn't just local. It was interstate, with members in 7 states. They used encrypted messaging apps, dead drops, and a rotating schedule of meetups where they'd share victims. The whole operation was coordinated by someone they only referred to as the Shepherd. "It's a religious reference," Albert explained. "These groups often use biblical language to justify what they do. The shepherd tends his flock." "It's sick. Do we know who the shepherd is?" Marcus asked. "Not yet, but we're close." Then, 6 weeks after Abraham's arrest, everything changed. Marcus got a call from Officer Kramer. "You need to sit down for this." "What happened?" "Abraham made bail. Some anonymous donor posted the $500,000. He's out." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. That's not possible, the judge said. The judge was overruled by someone higher up. Marcus, I don't know who these people know, but they've got serious pull. Marcus hung up and immediately called Rachel. We need to leave. Now, take Spencer and go somewhere safe. Marcus, what? Abraham's out on bail. I'm coming to get you. But when Marcus pulled into their driveway, there was already a car parked there. Abraham's car. Marcus ran inside to find Abraham sitting in his living room, drinking coffee, with Rachel standing in the corner looking terrified. Get out of my house, Marcus said. Abraham smiled. It was the smile of a man who knew he had all the power. Actually, this is partly my daughter's house. I'm here as her invited guest. I didn't invite you, Rachel said shakily. Your mother did. She called Rachel and insisted I come talk to you both. Clear up this misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Marcus said. You're a child molester, and you're going to prison. Abraham's smile didn't waver. Am I? Because my attorney seems to think otherwise. Apparently, there are some issues with your evidence. The recording you made, it might not be admissible. You didn't have my consent to record me. Marcus felt cold. He'd been so focused on catching Abraham, he hadn't considered the legal technicalities. And Spencer's testimony, Abraham continued, is from a 5-year-old child who was clearly coached by his father. A father who, by his own admission, has harbored unfounded suspicions about me for years. A father who set up an elaborate trap to entrap me. You came to my house with a bag full of toys and books for my grandson. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And without that recording, without Spencer's coached testimony, what do you have? The word of a paranoid attorney with control issues. Marcus lunged forward, but Rachel grabbed his arm. Abraham stood, straightened his jacket. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drop these ridiculous charges. You're going to apologize to my family for the pain and embarrassment you've caused. And we're all going to move forward like civilized people. And if I don't, Abraham's smile turned cold. Then you'll lose everything. Your career, your reputation, your marriage, your son. He looked at Rachel. I've already spoken to some excellent family attorneys. They assure me that a grandmother with custody concerns, especially one whose son-in-law has proven to be unstable and paranoid, has a very strong case for visitation rights. Unsupervised visitation rights. Marcus saw red. But before he could move, Luther Bass appeared in the doorway. I'd leave now if I were you, Mr. Lehman, Luther said calmly. Abraham looked at the PI, clearly assessing whether he was a threat. This isn't over. No, Marcus said quietly. It's not. After Abraham left, Marcus turned to Rachel. Did you know he was coming? My mother called. Said he wanted to talk. I told her no, but she gave him our address anyway. I didn't think he'd actually come. Marcus pulled out his phone and called Albert. We need to accelerate the timeline. Abraham's making moves. Then so should we, Albert replied. I found something. About the shepherd. Who is it? There was a pause. You're not going to believe this. That evening, Albert came to the house with a folder full of documents. He spread them on the dining room table, bank records, property deeds, incorporation papers. The shepherd, Albert said, is not a who. It's a what. Specifically, a trust. The Lehman Family Trust, established in 1987 by Abraham's father. Marcus scanned the documents. A trust can't run a criminal network. No, but it can fund one. And it can be controlled by trustees. Want to guess who the current trustees are? Rachel looked at the papers and went white. My mother, Uncle Stanley, Uncle Jonathan, and she looked up at Albert. Albert corrected. I was removed when I started asking questions. But here's the interesting part. The trust doesn't just have money. It has property. 7 properties in 5 states. And according to Luther's investigation, at least 3 of those properties have been used as locations for the network's activities. How do you know? Marcus asked. Luther pulled up footage on his laptop. I've been surveilling the property closest to here. It's a farmhouse about an hour north. Registered to the trust, supposedly vacant. But over the past month, I've documented 17 different men visiting the property, including Abraham, including Stanley, and including someone else you'll recognize. He turned the laptop screen. Marcus watched grainy footage of cars pulling up to a remote farmhouse. Men getting out, entering the building, leaving hours later. Then Luther froze the frame. This one arrived last week. Recognize him. Marcus leaned forward and felt his world tilt. The man in the footage was Judge Carl Saunders. The same judge who'd presided over Abraham's bail hearing. The same judge who'd ordered Abraham released despite the severity of the charges. "Oh my God," Rachel whispered. "It gets worse," Albert said. "I've identified 12 men who visited that property in the past 6 months. 4 are in law enforcement. 3 are judges. 2 are prosecutors. 1 is a state senator." Marcus sat back, the implications washing over him. "We can't go through official channels." "No," Albert agreed. "We can't. Anyone we report this to might be part of the network, or might know someone who is. We'd be putting a target on our backs and giving them time to destroy evidence." "So what do we do?" Luther and Albert exchanged a look. "We do what they'd never expect," Luther said. "We go public. Bypass the system entirely and expose all of it at once. Names, evidence, everything." "They'll bury us," Rachel said. "They'll try," Albert replied. "But I have media contacts. National media. People who can't be bought or intimidated. If we give them a story this big, with this much evidence, they'll run it. And once it's out there, it can't be unseen." Marcus thought about Spencer, about Emily, about the 7 children they knew about and the countless others they didn't. He thought about Abraham's smug face, about the judge on the farmhouse footage, about the entire system built to protect monsters. "How long do we have to prepare?" Marcus asked. 2 weeks, Albert said. "I can have everything ready in 2 weeks. But Marcus, you need to understand. Once we do this, there's no going back. These people will come after you with everything they have." Marcus looked at Rachel. She met his eyes and nodded. 2 weeks, Marcus said. "Let's burn it all down." The next 2 weeks were the most intense of Marcus's life. By day, he maintained his normal routine, went to work, picked up Spencer from school, had awkward dinners with Rachel while they pretended everything was fine. By night, he met with Albert and Luther, building an evidence file that would be impossible to ignore. They called it Operation Daylight. The plan was simple: compile everything they had, documents, surveillance footage, testimonies from victims Albert had tracked down over the years, financial records showing how the trust funded the network, and release it all simultaneously to 3 major news outlets and the FBI's Internal Affairs Division. "The key is redundancy," Albert explained. "If we give it to 1 outlet, they might get pressured to kill the story. But if we give it to 3, plus Internal Affairs, someone will run with it." Marcus worked on the legal documentation, ensuring every piece of evidence was properly annotated and sourced. Luther handled the surveillance, gathering more footage from the farmhouse and identifying additional members of the network. And Albert worked his media contacts, preparing them for the biggest story of the year. But on day 9, something went wrong. Marcus came home to find his house ransacked. Furniture overturned, cushions slashed, belongings scattered everywhere. But nothing stolen. This wasn't a burglary. This was a message. Rachel and Spencer hadn't been home. They were at therapy, which Marcus now realized was the only reason they were safe. He called Luther immediately. "They're looking for the evidence," Luther said. "They know we're building something." "How?" "Could be anything. Someone saw us surveilling. Someone heard something." Or Luther paused. "Marcus, where's your laptop? The one with the case files." Marcus looked around the destroyed study. "I keep it locked in the safe. I've been carrying the key." But when he opened the safe, the laptop was gone. "They have it," Marcus said, feeling sick. "They have everything." "Not everything," Luther said. "I kept backups. Cloud storage, encrypted. They got 1 copy, but we have others. That's not the point. They know we know. They're going to accelerate whatever they're planning." That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat in Spencer's room, watching his son sleep, and thought about what failure would mean. Abraham back in their lives. The network continuing. More children hurt. The next morning, he got a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Turner, my name is Guy O'Donnell. I represent the Lehman Family Trust." Marcus's blood went cold. "How did you get this number? We need to meet. Today, I have a proposition that I think you'll find very reasonable. I'm not interested in anything you have to say. Not even if it means protecting your son? Mr. Turner, you're fighting a battle you cannot win. But you can walk away. Spencer can have a normal life. Rachel can have her family back. All you have to do is stop this crusade of yours. Go to hell. I'll be at the Starbucks on 5th and Main at 2 p.m. If you're not there, we proceed with alternative measures. And trust me, you won't like those measures." The line went dead. Marcus called an emergency meeting. Luther, Albert, and Rachel gathered at Luther's office. "It's a trap," Luther said immediately. Obviously, Marcus agreed. But what kind of trap? Albert was already pulling up information on Guy O'Donnell. He's a fixer. Works for wealthy families who need problems to disappear. He's connected to at least 3 cases of witness intimidation that I know of. So they're going to try to buy me off or threaten me, Marcus said. Or kill you, Luther added bluntly. If they're desperate enough. Rachel grabbed Marcus's hand. You can't go. If I don't, they'll come after us another way. At least this way, we control the meeting. You don't control anything, Luther said. These people have all the power, Marcus. They have money, connections, law enforcement in their pocket. What do you have? Marcus thought about it. What did he have? Not power, not connections, not money. But he had something they didn't. He had the truth. And he had people who cared about that truth enough to fight for it. I have you, Marcus said to Luther. And Albert. And every victim who's been brave enough to come forward. They can't kill all of us. They can try, Albert said grimly. At 1:30 p.m., Marcus walked into the Starbucks on 5th and Main. Luther was already there, sitting at a corner table with a laptop, recording everything. Albert was outside in a car with a police scanner and a direct line to Officer Kramer, the one cop they felt they could still trust. Guy O'Donnell was easy to spot. Expensive suit, shark's eyes, the kind of man who'd sold his soul so long ago he'd forgotten he ever had one. Mr. Turner, O'Donnell said, gesturing to the seat across from him. Thank you for coming. Say what you have to say. O'Donnell slid an envelope across the table. Inside is a check for $2 million. Also a contract. You sign it. You agree to drop all accusations against Abraham Lehman and any other members of the Lehman family. You agree to never speak publicly about any of this. In return, you get the money, and we guarantee that Spencer will never have any contact with Abraham again. Marcus didn't touch the envelope. And if I don't sign, then we proceed with Plan B. You lose your job. We have friends at your firm who'll find cause to terminate you. You lose custody of Spencer. We have a judge who owes us a favor and a psychologist who'll testify that you suffer from paranoid delusions. And you possibly lose your freedom. We have evidence that you broke into Abraham's house and planted evidence. Wire fraud, trespassing, evidence tampering. That's 10 years minimum. Marcus felt rage building, but he kept his voice level. None of that is true. Doesn't matter. We have lawyers who can make it look true. And by the time it's sorted out, if it ever gets sorted out, Spencer will be 18 and your life will be over. Marcus leaned back. You're assuming I care more about myself than about stopping you. Everyone has a breaking point, Mr. Turner. Even self-righteous heroes. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But you've miscalculated one thing. And what's that? I'm not a hero. I'm just a father who loves his son. And there is nothing, no amount of money, no threat, no consequence, that will make me stop protecting him. O'Donnell's smile faded. Then you're a fool. Probably. But I'm a fool with evidence. With witnesses. With documentation that will bury you and everyone you work for. Had evidence, O'Donnell corrected. We recovered your laptop. Whatever you think you have, it's gone. Marcus pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. Cloud backups are a wonderful thing, as are encrypted drives and dead man switches. He watched O'Donnell's face carefully, saw the moment the man realized Marcus might actually be a problem. What dead man switch? If I don't check in every 12 hours, everything I have gets automatically released to a dozen media outlets and law enforcement agencies. You kill me, you make this go away, and the story breaks anyway. Probably faster, actually, since my death would be pretty suspicious. It was a bluff. Marcus didn't actually have a dead man switch. But O'Donnell didn't know that. You're insane, O'Donnell said. No, I'm motivated. There's a difference. O'Donnell stood up. You're making a terrible mistake. I'll take my chances. As O'Donnell walked out, Luther came over. That went better than expected. Or worse, Marcus said. We just showed them threats won't work. Now they'll try something else. That night, Marcus got his answer about what something else meant. He got a call from Rachel. She was crying so hard he could barely understand her. They took him. Marcus, they took Spencer. Marcus's world stopped. What? How? I don't know. He was at school. The principal said a woman came. Said she was from Child Protective Services, that there'd been a report of abuse. She had paperwork, ID, everything looked legitimate. They gave her Spencer and, oh God, Marcus, what have they done? Marcus was already running for his car. Call the police. Call Kramer. Call everyone. But when he got to the school, there were already 3 police cars there. And standing in the principal's office, looking official and sympathetic, was a woman with a CPS badge. "Mr. Turner," she said, "I'm Carol Walker with Child Protective Services. I've removed your son from your custody pending an investigation into allegations of abuse." "What allegations?" "Your father-in-law, Abraham Lehman, has filed a complaint claiming you've been physically abusing Spencer. He has photographs, witnesses, medical records." "That's a lie. That's for us to determine. Spencer is currently in protective custody. You'll be able to see him once we've completed our investigation." Marcus felt the walls closing in. "Where is he?" "I can't tell you that. You have to tell me where my son is." "Actually, I don't. And if you continue to be aggressive, Mr. Turner, I'll have to ask these officers to remove you from the premises." Marcus looked at the cops, saw in their eyes that they'd do exactly that, saw that the system was working exactly as O'Donnell had promised it would. He called Luther from the parking lot. "They have Spencer. CPS took him," said Abraham, filed abuse allegations. "Fake CPS or real?" "I don't know. She had credentials, but I'm on it. I'll verify if she's legitimate." "Marcus, where are you?" "Outside the school. I don't know what to do. If I push too hard, they'll arrest me. If I don't, breathe. We'll find him. I promise." But an hour later, Luther called back with bad news. Carol Walker is real. She works for CPS. But Marcus, her ex-husband, is Jonathan Lehman, Rachel's uncle. Marcus felt sick. They got to her. Or she was already compromised. Either way, she has legal authority to keep Spencer. And unless we can prove she's acting improperly, we accelerate the timeline, Marcus said. "We release everything now." "Marcus, we're not ready. We need another week too." "We don't have another week. They have my son." There was silence on the other end. Then, "Okay, I'll call Albert. We go tonight." That evening, Marcus, Luther, and Albert met at a secure location, a hotel room Luther had rented under a fake name. They had 3 laptops, 17 flash drives, and a file 2 inches thick. "Here's how this works," Albert said. "I've already briefed my contacts at the Times, the Post, and the Journal. They're standing by. We send them everything at once: documents, footage, witness statements, financial records. They'll have exactly 6 hours to review before we release it to social media and alternative news sites. The FBI Internal Affairs Division gets the same package." "What about Spencer?" Rachel asked. She'd insisted on being there, despite Marcus's concerns. "Once this breaks, CPS won't be able to hold him," Luther said. "The Lehmans won't have any power to protect Carol Walker, and she'll have to release him or face obstruction charges." "And if she doesn't?" Rachel pressed. No one answered. "Then we go get him," Marcus said quietly. "Whatever it takes." At 11 p.m., they pressed send. 18 emails, each with hundreds of attachments, launched into the void. Marcus watched the progress bars, feeling like he was watching a bomb countdown. At 11:07 p.m., the first response came back. From the Times, "Holy shit. This is real." Albert typed back, every word, every document. "Run it." By midnight, all 3 outlets had confirmed they were running the story. The Times was going with it in their morning edition. The Post was posting online immediately. The Journal was coordinating with their investigative team. And then, at 12:34 a.m., something neither Marcus nor Albert had anticipated happened. The story went viral. Someone at the Post had posted a tweet. "Breaking, multi-state child abuse network exposed. Dozens of prominent figures implicated. Full story coming." It got retweeted 10,000 times in 30 minutes. Marcus's phone started ringing. Media requests. Lawyers. People claiming to be victims or to know victims. It was chaos. And then, at 1:15 a.m., Marcus got a call from a number he recognized. "Officer Kramer. Marcus, you need to get somewhere safe. Now." "Why? What's happening?" "The FBI just raided the farmhouse. 7 arrests so far, including Judge Saunders. But Abraham and Stanley are in the wind. And Marcus, Spencer's not at the CPS facility." Marcus felt his heart stop. "What do you mean he's not there?" "Carol Walker moved him. We don't know where. We have people looking, but, Marcus, I think Abraham took him." The phone slipped from Marcus's hand. Rachel caught it, listened for a moment, then went white. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Luther was already on his laptop, pulling up tracking software. Does Spencer have his phone? They took it when CPS picked him up, Marcus said. What about his smartwatch? The one you got him for his birthday. Marcus's eyes widened. It has GPS. Oh my God, it has GPS. Luther's fingers flew across the keyboard. If it's still charged, if they didn't find it, got it. He's moving, heading north on Route 9. That's toward the farmhouse, Albert said. They're running, Luther said. Probably heading for Canada. If they cross the border. Marcus didn't wait to hear the rest. He grabbed his keys and ran. Marcus, Rachel called after him. You can't do this alone. Watch me. He was in his car, engine roaring to life. GPS pulled up on his phone showing Spencer's location as a moving blue dot. Behind him, he heard another engine start. Luther's car. The drive was a blur. Marcus pushed his car to speeds he'd never attempted, weaving through late-night traffic, running red lights, focused only on that blue dot that represented his son. Luther's voice came through his phone on speaker. Marcus, the FBI is en route. They can intercept. Not fast enough. If you confront Abraham yourself, he could hurt Spencer. He won't get the chance. The blue dot stopped moving. Marcus saw it was at a rest stop, one of those small, dingy ones on rural highways that nobody used anymore. He pulled in 5 minutes later, killed his lights, and scanned the parking lot. Only 2 cars. One was Abraham's sedan. The other was a van with out-of-state plates. Marcus got out of his car quietly. Luther pulled in behind him, also going dark. Police are 10 minutes out, Luther whispered. We should wait. But then Marcus heard it. Spencer's voice, screaming. No. Let go. I want my daddy. Marcus ran. The van's back doors were open. Inside, Marcus could see Abraham trying to force Spencer into a car seat. Stanley was in the driver's seat, engine running. Spencer! Marcus shouted. Abraham spun around. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Abraham smiled that same sick smile and pulled something from his jacket. A gun. I was hoping you'd come, Abraham said. Saves us the trouble of dealing with you later. Marcus froze. Every instinct screamed at him to rush forward, to protect his son. But Abraham had the gun pointed at Spencer's head. Let him go, Marcus said, forcing his voice to stay calm. This is over, Abraham. The FBI is coming. Your whole network is being rounded up right now. There's nowhere to run. There's always somewhere to run. People with our resources, we have options you can't imagine. You're a 73-year-old child molester with a gun. You have no resources. You have nothing. Abraham's face twisted. I have everything. I built this. I created something beautiful, something that gave joy to people like me. And you self-righteous piece of shit. You destroyed it. It wasn't beautiful. It was evil. And you know it. Who are you to decide what's evil? Some lawyer who thinks he's better than everyone else. I'm a father, Marcus said simply. And I will die before I let you hurt my son again. Abraham's finger moved toward the trigger. And then 3 things happened at once. Luther tackled Stanley from the driver's side door, pulling him out of the van. Spencer bit Abraham's hand, drawing blood. And Marcus lunged forward, faster than he'd ever moved in his life. He hit Abraham like a linebacker, driving the old man back. The gun went off, the bullet going wild, shattering a window. Marcus didn't stop. He grabbed Abraham's wrist, twisted hard until he heard bones crack, and the gun fell. Then he punched Abraham in the face. Once, twice, 3 times. Years of rage and fear and frustration pouring out. Daddy! Spencer's voice cut through the red haze. Marcus stopped, looked down at Abraham, bloody and broken on the ground, and realized he was about to do something he couldn't take back. He stepped away, picked up Spencer, held his son tight while the boy sobbed into his shoulder. I've got you, Marcus whispered. I've got you. Police cars screamed into the parking lot, lights blazing. FBI agents poured out, guns drawn. Marcus watched them arrest Abraham, read him his rights, drag him away. Officer Kramer approached Marcus. Are you okay? No, Marcus said honestly. But I will be. They took Spencer to the hospital to be checked out. Rachel met them there, and for the first time in months, they held each other and cried. Over the next 72 hours, the full scope of the network came to light. The FBI arrested 23 men across 5 states. Judge Saunders was disbarred and charged with 20 counts of conspiracy. Stanley Lehman was found trying to board a flight to Mexico and arrested at the airport. And Abraham Lehman, facing over 100 criminal charges, tried to make a deal. He offered to testify against everyone, name names, provide evidence. The FBI told him to go to hell. The trial took 8 months. Marcus testified. Spencer testified, through a recorded interview that made the jury cry. 17 other victims came forward, some of them now adults, all with stories that painted a picture of systematic, organized abuse spanning decades. The jury deliberated for 45 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Abraham Lehman was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. He died in prison 3 years later. Alone. Stanley got life as well. Jonathan took a plea deal, but still got 25 years. Judge Saunders got 15. The others, the prosecutors, the cops, the businessmen, all faced justice in various forms. Vivian Lehman never admitted her role, but she lost access to her grandchildren, and the trust was dissolved, its assets seized to pay victim compensation. Carol Walker was fired from CPS and charged with kidnapping and conspiracy. She served 18 months and lost her license. And Marcus, Rachel, and Spencer slowly began to heal. They moved to a new house, a new town, where no one knew their story. Spencer started therapy with a specialist in childhood trauma. Rachel reconnected with the parts of her family who weren't monsters, which turned out to be more than she'd thought. And Marcus went back to being a lawyer. But now, he specialized in child advocacy cases. Pro bono, taking on the cases nobody else would touch. Fighting the fights that needed fighting. On the 5-year anniversary of that night at the rest stop, Marcus sat in his study looking at a framed photo. It showed him, Rachel, and Spencer, now 10 years old, at the beach, smiling and building sandcastles. Spencer was thriving. Still had nightmares sometimes, but he was in school, had friends, played soccer, and most importantly, knew that he was loved and protected and believed. There was a knock on the study door. Spencer poked his head in. "Dad, can we play catch?" Marcus smiled. "Always." As they walked outside together, Spencer's hand in his, Marcus thought about everything they'd survived, about the darkness they'd faced and the light they'd found on the other side. And he thought about what Albert had told him right before the trial started. Evil wins when good people do nothing. You did something. You saved your son. You saved 17 other children. You broke a network that had been operating for 40 years. That matters. It did matter. It would always matter. Spencer tossed him the ball, and Marcus caught it. And for a moment, everything was perfect. They'd won. Not just in court, but in every way that counted. And every night when Marcus tucked Spencer into bed, when his son smiled and said, "Good night, Dad. Love you," Marcus knew that no amount of money, no threat, no system of power would ever take that away again. Because some things were worth fighting for. And family, real family, the kind built on love and trust and protection, was worth everything. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.